Hello and welcome to the GamerRoos Podcast. Today is April 23rd, 2024. My name is James Carrino, and I'm joined once again by my two good friends,
Alex and Minh. Yeah.
It's wonderful to have you here today as we appreciate a lovely spring. And here we are getting into our content for today. We are discussing toxic communities again because...
Correction. We're going to be talking about gaming communities in general, and
It's not a phase, Mom.
a little bit more in how these communities interact with each other and with the general public.
But on the topic of, I think it's very important that we kind of it's hard to define what makes a toxic gaming community.
And separate that out from like a regular community.
Exactly, and I think
Well, we should start then with a definition of a regular gaming community.
It's okay. I'll give one short and sweet. It's anyone that follows or plays a certain game or interest.
I think follows is an extremely important portion of that because, as we know, there's a lot of overlap between people who don't play the game but they enjoy the characters and the setting and the series, but they might not have actually played the game.
Or also you don't necessarily just play the game.
Yes,
because it could always be you follow lore, you follow important people that's part of that development cycle, or you talk to people in that sense of what you like about the game, just like what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, it's interesting idea behind it.
right, and I think the definition of a gaming community itself is just a bunch of people who follow a game. And that kind of leads into different factions because you can follow a game, but that doesn't mean that you play the game. You can enjoy aspects of the game and be really passionate about it, even if you're not necessarily playing it. So we can't say that
and there's the other way around where you can enjoy a game, but you want nothing to do with the community. That's also a pretty... Yeah, right?
Which that's going to be a big topic point, I think, when I talk about toxic communities, but I'll kind of get on to that. But so now we have that definition. It's super hard to define what is a toxic community.
I think what we should get away from is a community as a whole being toxic.
Mm-hmm.
But we should at least think about it in what you just mentioned, factions,
Mm-hmm.
or let's say segments of a community, where, of course, I want to say it, put it out there that every community will have some kind of toxic behavior behind it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of gaming or whatever you want to be doing.
It's the internet, and nobody's got accountability, so of course there's going to be some jackass.
Not just internet, it's just communities in general.
Of course.
You'll always have that kind of small toxicity hidden behind anything, because again, this is a relationship between people, and yeah, you can't really get away from toxicity when you're having interactions like that.
People, the game, and then other people. And unfortunately, people on the internet have opinions. People are not all the same, and that, I think, is what kind of starts to lead to those kinds of factions of communities being toxic. Because when we say that, we shouldn't think of a community, when we look at a community like Persona community, the Persona community is really infamously toxic. But really, it would be... The Persona community is a faction of the Shin Megami Tensei community, and Persona is a faction, Persona 1 is a faction in the overall Persona community.
Well, you also have to think about it these are two actually different games,
Mm-hmm.
too.
Well, I mean...
Because you can...
Yeah,
yes,
I would agree with Min and say that the Persona fan base and the Shin Megami Tensei fan base are two separate entities.
I would say that. I would agree.
I get this... I know this whole storyline
Mm-hmm.
behind Shin Megami and that world.
Yeah.
In every game, the world blows up.
Pretty freaking much.
But regardless, right? Let's confine it. Let's add on to it. Because from my experience in leading the GamerRoos in the past,
Mm-hmm.
every game, no matter what, will have its own community behind it, and regardless of if it's a sequel, regardless of if it's in the same genre, they will always have separate communities.
This is with the recent prevalence of the recent resurgence in Fallout 4 community. following the Fallout TV show, there has also been that uptick in the difference between Bethesda Fallout games and the Obsidian Fallout games, or the more West Coast Fallout games.
I mean, that's always been the case, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's just gotten more because more people...
Because more people are playing Fallout 4 right now, in 76. And you do see that kind of delineation. And one of the things I failed to explain my in-depth feelings on, but I do think Min covered well in his definition of adaptation, was specifically the infamous debacle between West Coast Fallout fans and Bethesda Fallout fans, because quite frankly that is one of the most legendary divides in gaming, ironically in a series about the inevitability of war.
But
there's a common truism when it comes to Fallout. It says, "Oh, don't criticize the games. We hate them more than anybody else."
Like when we're talking about like these gaming communities, nothing really brings out like factionalism. Like, okay, how many times you like look at any game out there, and there's always like the group that wants to optimize, or the group that wants to like just casually play, or the group that is like
collecting everything, or the group that's just
pretty much they want, people want different things from a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets messy when people don't understand like that's not always the way to play the game as well. Like there's many ways to play the game. There's also many games out there.
Right, and I think I can highlight a community that has that exact problem. And I would actually go as far to say that there is not, maybe the overall community is very toxic. There might be a few games in the series that don't have as toxic of communities, like fans who really like those games, but I feel like overall the community is just, almost every game has just a nasty fan base, but like Fire Emblem, the community of Fire Emblem is nasty as possible, and it has a lot of elitist behavior to where it's like some people like myself in the past, I used to love playing Fire Emblem to level grind. It was just really fun, and then watching my units steamroll a map, that was really entertaining to me. And then you had these elitists who were like, that's not how Fire Emblem is supposed to be played, and you're playing it incorrectly. And then you have these same, not even just, it's mostly elitists who say this, but then you'll have people being like, well, you aren't supposed to restart after your unit dies. That's not how you're supposed to play. And then you get like a lot of, again, this elitist mindset that starts to appear, and it makes these communities, the reason I call this toxic is because it's forming into where like the community as a whole wants to tell you what your opinion is, and if you do have a different opinion than what the genuine, like the general consensus is, you are equally wrong. And I had this happen when I was playing Birthrights, Fire Emblem, and the elitists in the community say the game is very easy, and it's not. Trust me, that was a very, like the late game chapters in that game, even with jacked units, is very tricky to have to play through. But the elitists, the general consensus is the game is easy. Your opinion differs. Oh no, you must be the problem, not my opinion.
There is an element when it comes to elitists in the community of just shut up and just play the game on your own terms and don't interact with that element of the community. But it's difficult. I'd go back to Fallout as well, where sometimes you want to just enjoy a playthrough of Fallout 4, for instance, but then every time when you enter any sort of Fallout sub-community, there is also that prevailing anti-Fallout 4 sentiment, anti-Fallout 3 sentiment, broad anti-Bethesda sentiment. And I'm not saying they don't have their points, quite frankly. We went over a lot of that last week. But at the same time, it's frustrating when you're just trying to interact and try and appreciate something when there is such a prevailing, overwhelming, holistic opinion that people take kind of as a default that begins to corrupt and, quite frankly, I think harms the community in general.
From listening to you two, I think it's a lot of it is very much bias orientated, where people have their own experience and they are more biased towards it, and it collects, right? Communities in general are a collective mind, and
a collective mind in a very vague sense.
Collective mind, where I hate everybody else associated with this hive mind.
Pretty much.
regardless of like all these nasty biases, there could be some good biases too. Like, I don't ever think I got a negative, how do you call it, interaction in the Factorial community. Well, here and there maybe, but it's mostly the main consensus is play how you want, and if you need help optimizing, we'll help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's a think tank kind of.
See, for me, it's like I've never been like. The reason I want to kind of like I kind of try to view things from an objective standpoint, and I've never had issues with the Animal Crossing community. But I do know that there is a real nasty side in the Animal Crossing community that has a lot of...
You better have the cat in bags.
Exactly.
Or else I'm going to put you in a bag.
Exactly. This, like, mindset that some of these people have, that you have characters on your island that I don't have. I can't handle this. My cozy gamer mindset is collapsing. Like, I do see that there is like that problematic scene in the Animal Crossing community, and even somehow there's elitists in a game like that. It's like, you didn't play forest animals on the GameCube? You're not a true Animal Crossing fan.
No, I think that's like kind of brought to light. They are definitely a majority, I believe, mm-hmm. and they're brought to light basically because of the internet. And how much exposure you can get on the internet, and however loud you can speak on the internet. And that, that speaks to why, like, a lot of gaming community have the rap that they have right now. It's just, how loud can you be in this void? Mm-hmm. But, like, there could be some good stuff that comes from it.
I mean, you always have to have a negative element when it comes to discussing a video game, because the last thing you want to do is just, everything you put out is wonderful. And I'm saying this as a Bethesda fan, ironically. But at the same time, you do want to make sure there is that element of negativity, just so that there is an avenue in which people can feel welcome to express their criticisms. And of course, constructive criticism is always more appreciated than everything sucks.
Now, yeah, I agree. Like, constructive criticism is great and all, but like, let's be real about it. Not everyone is gonna be constructive about criticism.
Sure, and that's always gonna be the
and it's gonna be stupid mindset of the masses of game has this element. It's bad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I hate...
Like, no other reason.
I hate when communities do that, because there's, like, genuinely a lot of good games out there, but it's like, this game has one puzzle in it? Don't touch it.
Yeah. And, like, the gems of the community, or the gem of, like, a game can really do shine when people do find those, like, little Easter eggs or, like, little nuanced stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's difficult. What Min was saying about having those elements of a community, those negative elements that are always going to pop up. I mean, that's always the risk of communicating with other people in general. I mean, 9 out of 10 people are nice, and then 1 out of 10 are just.
And let's be real. You're not going to be like agreeing with everyone and everyone you meet.
No, of course not.
Anyone and everyone you meet, and like you won't always be friends with them either. And sometimes, in the rare case, you'll hate them.
And I think...
No, you're not wrong. You're not
like,
wrong.
I was going to say, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Like, you can just meet someone and know, like, okay, I might not like this person, but I'm going to give it a try.
I think one thing that I've noticed, because I've been kind of studying this a bit, because since we can't really define that, really we could say that no community is entirely toxic. Like, there's no community that exists that has absolutely no redeeming qualities, but we can definitely say that there's, in some communities, more toxic players than other communities. Like,
which is how you get that kind of reputation that you would describe, I don't know, something like League of Legends with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even though I've met a fairly decent amount of chill people in League of Legends, but but that kind of stereotype gets really meshed with any competitive game.
It also like run different ways too, depending on like where you stand on your like comfortability. Also, because like the people that are like
there is genuine merit in taking, you know, a competitive game especially seriously and being, you know,
I
had
talking
this.
about that.
Oh,
I mean, like, yeah, for the right of the game being competitive, they have the right to be competitive.
right.
And, like, the other part of it is, like, newcomers that aren't as competitive also trying to intrude in this space that another community has made. That kind of thing also causes tension, and, you know, one side can see that as toxic. Think about it like this. So, you are heavily invested in whatever game, right?
1,000
And-
hours just every week.
Yeah, 1,000 hour every week.
Somehow.
Somebody new come along and basically say, it's hard, make it easier.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
A good example would be, like, let's say you're like a tryhard at Fortnite. This sounds dumb. And you play the game and you keep dying to, like, specific guns. So you start saying, gun balancing bad, fix gun balancing.
But, like, if you played the game long enough, let's say you figure out a way to counteract that.
And
Or, like, the community has found a way to counteract that.
right, and when I first started playing Fortnite, like, gun balancing was, like, I think the number one hardest thing for me to have to get used to, because, and I genuinely was sitting there, I'm like, I hate this mechanic, because you have some guns that are legendary, some guns that are epic, and by the late point of the game, any common gun you get is trash, and it feels like an unbalanced thing, but you soon realize that it is balanced, because if that was the case, everyone would just camp in specific spots and
Yeah, there'd be no reason to explore
And,
the map and take away from
and
the
like
battle
that-
royale element of it.
Yeah, and that, like, kind of learning curve of the game, right?
yeah.
Like, regardless if it's, like, whatever. This is not discounting, like, the balance team, and this is not discounting the, like, integrity of any game, right? But there are, if I were to put it, filthy casuals.
But at the same time, there's annoying elitists.
Yes, they're, again...
So you're telling me it all comes down to a balance? Whoa!
Oh! But, like, yeah, it's interesting when we talk about, like, this, because, like, it brings up the question of, like, things like gatekeeping. Should we gatekeep this community from the tourists?
Gatekeeping.
But, like...
There are some instances
there's-
where it's justified. I mean,
There's some merit to, like, say, hey, this is how certain games are put out there. Like, these are certain little secrets of the game that you will learn later, but, like, you won't get it now. But, like, I believe, well, this is my opinion, I believe in soft locking certain communities.
soft locking.
Explain.
Okay. It's not like full gatekeep, but I believe everyone should have a chance at a community. But the core of the community has to, like, lead to keep, like, the integrity of a certain community. So, like, let's say, it's hard because, again, it's like...
Yeah, finding specific examples for it is kind of
Yeah.
putting
like,
a lot of people on the spot. But I know what you mean. The problem is that you have, I guess, bringing up TF2 again, is that, like, back as the game was starting to wind down from being one of Valve's flagship video games, from like 2012 to 2015, they had this issue where they wanted to move on to, like, full community updates. And you had a couple instances like this with Robotic Boogaloo and the Invasion update. And it was definitely, like, they had this very robust community making element, and they still do to this day. But they were trying to make a lot of these updates from specifically, like, community content. But the problem of payment kind of came up because if all these things are getting sold, and there is a measure of payment, like, today, but then you had a lot of these principal developers, and nobody could really agree on a settled amount, and it turned into infighting and drama, and it killed community updates for TF2, and ironically, that's what killed updates for TF2.
I think I remember what I missed out on saying. It's that the core community has to set expectations.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and to that example, right? I think there is a self-cannibalization
There's such a bitter irony as a TF2 fan when you realize that the community that so desperately wants an update is the same community that killed any chance of it happening to begin with.
Think about in that sense, right? Like where you're in the position of the developers. You need more community, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the core community is so tight knit, and like there is like these expectations to the community. It's just hard for newcomers to come.
Oh yeah. There are definitely instances where it's difficult to get into a community, and there does have to be a welcoming presence. It's just how do you cultivate that? Yeah, again, how do you achieve that balance of cultivating a way inwards without completely cheapening the fact that there is an in crowd at all?
Yeah, and that's the problem of every game out there, or any community actually.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have anything to kind of go off of that, because when I think of I don't really think. Actually, now that I think about it more, I think there were a few instances where the introduction to a community was just super toxic right off the bat. It's my introduction to the Fire Emblem Heroes community was I remember I posted a build for a character I was using, and I said, what does everybody think? Someone comments and was like, why are you using that character? You don't know how to play the game. First freaking comment on the post, and then they started making fun of me, mocking for having a specific unit 5-starred when no one's supposed to use that unit. And I'm
to be completely fair, you are the ranking FNG in that instance, so there is an element of just taking your lumps and then moving on, but it's also a video game.
I know, and it was just a lot of berating, and then my introduction to the Persona community was kind of similar, because I came to the community and my first point was just, I don't like Persona 3, and that turned into oh my gosh, you haven't played the game. Yes, I have.
I also feel like it's a maturity thing as well.
Low-key.
Oh yeah, this is the fun part.
So if you want to,
it's a maturity thing. Gamer, think about it.
Why do you think so many children's franchises are so much more toxic than adult franchises? You could have.
It's not the children.
Oh, well.
It's not. I'm just telling you, it's not the children. It's the adults
that play the
game that has either nostalgia or have no damn life.
I don't know. I haven't seen a very toxic community for Dora's Purple Island adventure. So
But
Orange was
again,
better.
Let's not discount the toxic gamer kid that plays Fortnite or Roblox or whatever.
Another victory for the Fortnite OGs.
But still, I think it's very much a maturity thing when we interact online, and it's easy to just be how do you call it? Unrestrained.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Excessively cynical.
Sure. Online, because of the anonymity that we all have. Because okay, you're not really being tied to anything unless some hacker get your IP address, hardware, or ID, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to that effort. I mean, they really hate you.
See,
if they're going to that effort, you've got bigger problems.
I want to kind of drop a hot take.
Go ahead.
It's a bit of a hot take. I am in the debate field. I do debate.
No, you're not.
No, you're right. I kind of am now. I was really big in the debate field, specifically with religion at one point. And when I was doing that, I noticed, especially as somebody who just recently kind of got diagnosed with a couple mental illnesses, that I had particularly in that field, that debate field, specifically of religion, you have a lot of people who have psychosis, a lot of people who have BPD or other. I mean, I don't want to diverge too much on that point, but the problem is that you're with those kinds of communities, and you're with a lot of people who don't have a good grasp on their mental health, and they're debating, assuming themselves as some kind of defender of insert religion, and that leads to, you can kind of tell that the field of debate is full of mentally unstable people.
And-
And then I look at some communities.
Would the term sycophant be applicable?
I don't know. What
But
that
like,
means.
you know what's funny?
What?
Your experience is so different from mine because I help with my local church or with my church, and to like teach theology. And I was like prior to all the nerd culture, I really was like a avid scholar of Catholicism as well as other philosophies and psychology. And it's very different when I talk to like certain people on the matter of religion or just any hard topic in general.
But
It's
you know
like,
how you kind of go back to when you mentioned that a lot of times people on the internet are more unrestrained than they are in real life. When I would discuss religion in real life, I was very, very much more calm and collective about it. When I was on the internet, it was screaming matches. And I noticed that fairly decently, that's kind of the same thing that I see when I am debating Persona in Persona communities, but I'm also noticing that a lot of times people who are overreacting to negative opinions do have other like issues that are very underlying. And I think sometimes overly emotional games attract overly emotional people.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to bring up the mental health issue, but it is an underlying issue with the internet.
I mean, you can see that though.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Like, I would even say that people who particularly are more competitive, like I've seen
there
people,
are games that are used as coping mechanisms. Let's look at veterans with like a lot of like your RPGs, Ready or Not, or like Call of Duty, something like that. Like it's a way for them to vent. It's a way for them to either use their known skills or like it's whatever to keep their mind busy. It's we can see that in that case, and like sure it can be a good thing there, right?
I would even argue it's never a good thing when it becomes like a coping mechanism because then it kind of leads to an addiction.
Well, I would disagree to an extent. Yes, it could become an addiction. Most things can become an addiction, but I think there is a valid, how you say, a position for games to be a coping mechanism, a healthy coping mechanism.
I can definitely see games being a healthy coping mechanism because games like Spiritfarer are kind of used for people who deal with grief, and this is kind of how they can help deal with grief and moving on. Granted, I probably should never have played Spiritfarer, but that was because I was very mentally unstable, and playing a game about death is probably not the best idea to do.
Well, there's always the classic example of buy little Timmy a 360 so he doesn't hear his parents get a divorce.
But, I mean, at the same time, buy little Timmy to 360 so he doesn't hear his parents getting divorced, and then little Timmy thinks that when bad things happen, he needs to run to the Xbox, and that goes into a much more deeper psychology thing that I think this is not meant to diverge onto too much.
I mean, but yeah, it's mental issue has been a rampant in like the gaming community, especially because
It's always been a haven for outcasts. Yeah,
it's an outcast original origined place. Like that's where your like nerds go to. That's where your like again socially outcasted people go to. It's only become recent where like your like normal people really invested their time in games.
I will say, I think it's also important to kind of notice, especially, and this is just to anyone who plays games or who plays something like, I'm going to use League of Legends as an example. Like, if you play League of Legends and you get irrationally angry at the game, like, it's one thing to slam on the desk and go, fuck, or say shit. It's another thing to get so irrationally angry that you are genuinely wishing the worst thing upon somebody who's just playing the game.
Yeah, and it's like it brings everything that like a game does. It tries to bring an emotion or a certain behavior out, and it's fun to see. While it's fun to see certain things like this, right? Like you love it when Tyler 1 does his thing. You're trash. Fix the game. But even then, let's go. Tyler 1. I mean,
dude,
Tyler 1
that headphone down. It haunts my dreams.
Tyler 1 has genuinely changed.
Yes.
He used to be a lot worse, but there was
But
one
like
episode.
he's still entertaining.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at the one episode Tyler 1 had where he got so mad at League. He literally like threw everything on the ground, went into like some kind of fetal position, and kept saying, "Get out of my head, leave me alone." Those kinds of things are not normal, and
It's
like
not.
how angry he would get. That is not normal nor healthy behavior. And even Tyler 1 admitted when he got perma banned from League for like 3 years, he even admitted, he's like, yeah, I deserve this. And the community, which I want to just kind of say I'm disappointed in the League of Legends community for this, but Tyler 1's behavior was horrible. He admits to that. And then the community wanted to try to get Riot to unban his account.
But I think the sentiment of the community kind of got a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. I'm not gonna say it's fully gone, but yeah, it's with the content creator comes like when a content creator change, it brings his like
fan base and
fan
followers. I think that's a big element of what
Smart.
we've been discussing is especially in the rise of internet culture in like the 2010s. It's not just about the fan base surrounding an individual game, but also the people, the personalities. Like a big aspect of that is like in GTA 5 for Dark Viper AU. That's a huge aspect of it. But then
how many people follow the VAs?
Exactly, yeah. And then the VTubers, then like the individual streamers, Let's Players, content creators of a community, and how many people follow those, and the cross contamination with the communities themselves, and
that's the only way you get cross pollination between games, really, because like either it's like diverging interest, shared interest on things, because like if you are like, let's go back to Tyler 1, right? The only thing you see him play was League of Legends. It's hard to get him out of that like space until like he got kind of forced to.
Right, and he actually, I think he stopped streaming for a while when he got kicked off, but
he went on a detox.
Yeah.
And now he's like a top % on chess.
Right,
And he's getting a baby soon.
yeah, I think
But
what's
like
wait,
really,
he breed? You bred Tyler 1?
you bred Tyler what? That's so kind of weird.
he has a girlfriend, and yes,
Yeah,
they.
birth-
Sorry, it was a Jurassic
Birth
Park
and
reference,
Also,
but
Tyler 1 has a pretty nice ass.
It works out.
He really does. Anyways, I think another good example of like what can kind of set the tone for a community, and I've noticed this particularly, the like streamers and like big content creators really do set the tone for a community. I'll point this out with Makoto from Persona 5. One really popular streamer played Persona 5 and called Makoto a Mary Sue. Then the consensus of the community became Makoto is Mary Sue. Now, I do personally think Makoto has a bit of problems in her writing as a character, just kind of on Atlas's end. But I can
Remind me who that one is. I don't
Queen.
remember.
Okay.
Okay, Queen.
Yeah.
I don't remember like most of the characters.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But I mean, you don't have.
I'm Persona 4.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
you don't have to kind of know. You don't really have to know the character here in this analogy. It's more just understanding the context. The character, everyone in the community starts saying, "Okay, Makoto's a Mary Sue," and I've noticed that it's very common in just communities in general. Because it's not just the Persona community that does this, but it's like big content creators say birthrights is easy. Therefore, the community says birthrights is easy, and I think content creators really set the opinion and they set the tone for what communities' opinions are, and I think they can also set the tone for if a community is toxic or wholesome.
Yeah, I agree.
no, you I think you hit the nail on the head, honestly.
There's another aspect I think you're missing out on,
Ooh.
and that is ports, translations,
Mm-hmm.
or like just different region in general. Because like, okay, let's say you created a game in the great example is Japan, and there's like some cultural like inspiration, some societal like backdrop to it. You miss all that when you port it or translate it to a different language, and for a different continent in general. Let's say America, or the famous and fun example of America, where it's like they won't understand certain things, like they don't understand there is social pressure from the top kind of thing.
And I think the Lost in oh my gosh, I like that because the lost in translation analogy is very interesting here because a lot of people don't understand the culture behind some of the games that they're based around, which leads to...
Famously Americans.
Famously Americans, but I think it's really interesting when we think of characters like Ryuji from Persona 5, who is this blonde-haired, ruthless thug that... Not really ruthless, he's this blonde-haired, stupid thug that in Japan nobody likes because he embodies the archetype of what is unpopular and bad. And then in America, he's like one of the most liked characters because he's the bro.
Yeah, but also it's like people also don't. People will also point out like I'm not know for sure, but like certain people are white, right?
Oh gosh,
they're not.
They're
white.
not Asian. They're white.
People also forget that Asian beauty standards is white.
Yeah,
like pale.
We also forget that. For some freaking reason, I don't know what it is with Japan, but they don't seem to understand black people.
That's just a racial thing that they don't know.
It's like you look at like black Japanese characters.
Again, it's a societal like bias.
Yeah.
Because like they've never seen a black person before.
They couldn't look.
Hey,
it up.
Heads up, guys! I'm gonna cut out the black thing from this.
Okay, that's fine. But
I'll keep the white stuff in, just not the.
Let's go. Okay,
It's true.
Recalculating. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
With that Japanese like beauty standard, you'll understand that people want to be as pale or like certain ways. When you look at Ryuji, right, he's blonde and all that. People will call him white or something, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're in the Japanese context, right, if you're dyeing your hair, you're a rebel. You're like a thug, pretty much, like what you just said, and people miss that.
I think. Again, there is just that differences in cultures that lead these kinds of characters. And it makes me kind of sad that like characters like like No Good Tora is a character in in Persona 5, and he's really liked in Japan. He is borderline not even noticed in the United States, and this is kind of because we don't understand the story. We don't really understand the story of this character as well as people in Japan would. And I think that goes back into like communities where we have this issue of, for some reason,
region-locked content.
Like, we don't understand. It's like
certain things need to be seen in certain ways.
And I think that's what it would separate like the Japanese Persona fan base from the United States Persona fan base. And granted, I've never been in like... Actually, I've not really been in, but I've seen the Japanese Persona fan base, and they're a lot more, like, positive acting.
Yeah.
And a lot less toxic. Like, I think someone I knew that was, like, Japanese that I said, I don't like Persona 3, here's my reasons why, and he goes, those are pretty valid reasons, and Persona 3 did have some of those issues, and Persona 3 was more criticized by the Japanese audience than it was criticized by the people in the United States. Yeah. And I think that's also where we kind of see those separations, like, in communities and like in how people are perceiving the games.
Yeah, perception is a funny thing because like you can always have a positive outlook on things. Like that kind of again to the streamers, right? Mm-hmm. It ties it up together, right?
Yeah, the streamers and the content creators for particular communities can help cement and codify interpretations of those sorts of things, because you got to understand the streamer and the content creator audience, by virtue of the fact that it's easy to access that content for free on the internet, is always going to be larger than simply the in-game audience, which is why streamers are courted so much. Well, streamers and content creators are courted so much in advertising for video games these days. And so as a result, there's this really famous example where back in the early 2000s, Sonic CD was considered one of the best classic Sonic games. Mm-hmm. But after the Christian Whitehead port came out in the mid-2000s, late 2000s, and got onto platforms like Xbox Live, Xbox Arcade, and more people actually had the opportunity to play it, the general opinion of Sonic CD as an individual game rapidly plummeted. Because a lot of people were able to interpret it for what it was rather than give it a lot of points because of how rare it was in the West. Granted, it was still one of the best-selling Sega CD games, but at the same time, in order to appreciate it, not 20 years, but like 10, 15 years after it came out, you had to have a working Sega CD and Sega Genesis, which was not really feasible. And that's a big issue. That's just the example I'm trying to give.
I think that's just an industry issue. Because, I'm not going to talk about
if you like
it
a game,
much.
please play it.
I'm not going to talk about it too much, but porting a game into a different environment is hard. And, some people don't see it that way. Because, again, I'm going to do a quick example. If you play a 72 resolution, right?
720.
720 on 1280.
Yeah, 720 by 1280.
Right?
Yeah.
But it also works backwards too. So if you play a 1280 on a 720, it shit too, or whatever.
Okay.
Whatever the
I think the point is that more porting is needed, but also I think more people have to embrace emulation as an industry standard.
No, I was gonna say you have to be able to match a certain quality and optimize for a certain system, and that's that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, for ports. But yeah, no, you're definitely right. People need to be able to interpret a game for themselves outside of bias, and that can at least quell some flames in the community, or bolster it.
Stop being sheep, people.
But no, outside of the toxicity of a community, let's think about the good things like the gaming community has been able to do. Because let's think about it on charity wise, because all the eyes on these streamers and games, right? You're able to generate funds for good causes.
I will say there was a very infamous person in the League of Legends community when League was first. When League was first coming into the picture, there was somebody who raised over thousands of dollars for League of Legends to fund it, and he was a cancer patient who loved to play Jax. He passed away, and League actually has a voice line that they still have to this day, where if Jax gets a penta, he says, "Here's to you, kid."
Yeah, and that's
I think
amazing.
something like that is a very sweet and amazing thing to do, especially from Riot Games, who is infamous for, being pretty shit company.
There are plenty of examples like that. There's this one from Overwatch actually, where this one guy who really enjoyed Overwatch, I think right as it came out, was actually I think he was killed in trying to stop a mugging, and they put a shrine to him in the game. And I think it's still there.
They did that with Skyrim too. There was a player that was a really infamous Skyrim streamer that passed away, and they made him an NPC that you can actually recruit and come play and have in your party.
And there are elements, and there's elements like that. And I think again we kind of we get away from some of the positive aspects of community because it's easier to focus on the negative when it comes to interacting with other people on the internet. Quite frankly, just having somebody to talk to about a lot of these games is a very liberating feeling. So where you can reciprocate and have responded to that kind of enthusiasm for something you have commonality with.
Basically, also remember, these are outcasts before, right? If you find people that, share in, your interests, it's a friendship.
Exactly.
And you're now not alone.
And I kind of had that experience with Pokemon. Pokemon really is a game that I think it has such a weird community. I've noticed that even its competitive side is genuinely not that toxic. Yeah. I mean, that's the card games maybe. That's kind of a different faction.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just I think the game itself is really designed around being a game that you play to connect, and I have a lot of people that I met through Pokemon that even though we don't talk anymore now, they were people that I'll kind of always remember for the rest of my life. Back when I was in 7th grade, I went on a vacation for a wedding, and there was this one other guy who had Omega Ruby, and I played a lot of Alpha Sapphire, and he gave me his Sceptile and Galadanite, and I have all 3 starters in a Mega Galade that I refuse to delete my save on Alpha Sapphire because I look back at this and I'm like, I remember Dylan who gave me all that stuff.
And it's like these
robbed him for
this element of like shared experience that I think gives games that like kind of leverage, because it's more universal now, because like there's so many games out there that you can just like share. And I think that for Pokemon, right, I think that's the original intent. Because like what's the biggest thing that they always have in every game?
Gotta catch them all.
No.
Trading.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how you catch them all.
And that's in pretty much that's in almost every Pokemon game except maybe some of the spin-offs.
Maybe, yeah.
I think even some of the spin-offs have trading. I know.
No. Like I'm pretty sure all the modern games have it, down to I think even Game Boy or
some of them. I know you can still. There is a way to transfer Game Boy Pokemon to DS. I remember.
There is.
No. There's a accepting Pokemon Bank. I think for the Virtual Console releases on the 3DS. There is no way of getting Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon onto Gen 3, but there is an unbroken chain of Gen 3 onwards to where you can get it onto Pokemon Home. I think.
Besides, it's very complicated, regardless. But like system-to-system connection is really good, or in the period that it came out, right?
Granted, you need a GBA, a DS, a 3DS, and a working internet connection as well as a subscription to Pokemon.
I'm talking about like GBA to GBA kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like again, like the main point here I'm trying to make is community building and like just these wholesome interaction with people to share in an interest is a good how do you call it,
point of contact?
Not point of contact, but like a good strength of just games in general, and with the people behind it too, because like I could have a wholly different experience than you have, James, because we share with each other.
Oh yeah.
Starfield, but but like to certain games, like we share different opinions, like whether we like it between each other or we have our differences. It's not polarizing, but it changes when you make it personal.
I've always said that the most valuable thing you can have in a conversation is a point of difference. The most valuable thing in a conversation is having a disagreement. And I think that's an important element of community, where if you don't have that disagreement, you really don't have much of a community.
It also shows you like someone's temperament too. Because like, okay, if we were to go get into a disagreement, right? Depending on how you react towards a certain feeling or how you present yourself, it's either hard. It makes it harder to reconnect, or it makes it plausible. Because like, okay, let's say you say that let's say the Avatar: The Last Airbender was horrible because of this and this and that, and they're making kids
I don't like Aang because he's bald.
But like,
The Legend of Korra is 10 times better.
Or whatever, right? And you make it personal and like attach it to something, whatever, right? You're trying to invoke a reaction, and it's just bad because like you're so stuck up in that idea or bias of yours on what a certain game is. You're not trying to listen to the other person, and I don't know.
I think what I've noticed is that kind of mindset really happens with people who put their nostalgia for something as like the forefront of almost their personality.
My experience is not just nostalgia, and it's very much of
or emotional attachment.
Emotional attachment or weakness. Because like, okay, let's say you're anxious about stuff, right? You will attach to certain beliefs.
And I would agree that, people who are very, anxious are going to attach themselves to specific kinds of beliefs. And for some people, games kind of end up forming their beliefs, so they start holding, like I said, that emotional attachment to something. And when people hold that emotional attachment, it's almost like if you insult this game, you are effectively insulting them.
Now, I do want to put a pin in that because, quite frankly, I think as we've gone on, I think we do need to also highlight how I think people get too connected to the entertainment that they consume. That's a complete other discussion.
Which is, it's actually valid to bring it up at this point, because I was going to bring up, have you guys know the community in Warhammer? Or not Warhammer, World of Warcraft.
Yes, I do know I know a lot about the World of Warcraft community.
And then you would know, I'm going to explain it to you, James. So there's many guilds, right, in their factions, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The funny part is that scientists, or scholars, and scientists probably, went in and did a research on how the community, or different guilds and community act. Because it's just a microcosm of how actual people act.
Right, it's a sociological study with merit, of course.
Right. And
sorry, that wasn't supposed to be sarcastic.
And I think that's funny because what did you just brought up again?
Well, I said it was a sociological
study. No, before that.
Oh, people get too attached to the entertainment that they consume.
Yeah, and they inject their own personal self in their entertainment. Mm-hmm. And it just becomes a part of them.
Mm-hmm.
See, I want to speak from actual experience because I used to be exactly like that. And there was I used to be in the visual novel community too.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm a part of that too.
Yeah, but the problem I had with one of the visual novels that I was reading called Far Beyond the World, the community behind it is terrible. But it's terrible for the same reason. I'm trying to word this right. It's not like Persona where you have people who are too opinionated over the story, too opinionated over the gameplay. No, it was everyone was so in love with one character that physically having a negative opinion on that character I was called names I didn't even know existed. When I started,
you're a 9-year-old walking into an NW2 lobby.
Basically, and I had a similar obsession with the visual novel in the beginning as well. When I started reading the novel, I started hating it more because the writing was bad, the story didn't make any sense, the main character was incredibly annoying, oh gosh, you don't want to look up Far Beyond the World, trust me.
Okay, that's.
I didn't know we were talking about one specific one.
I can go on. There's plenty of other visual novels I can use as an example.
Sorry, continue your point.
Right, but when it came down to the visual novel, it was just when I started having. I know, I told you not to look it up.
Man, can I see the pictures?
No. I'm saving you some trouble.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was one of my phases, but I definitely I've lost my point, but. When I started reading it and criticizing the visual novel, people took that incredibly offensive. I'm talking you equivalently assaulted their family. Like I said, I don't like the main character.
Yeah.
People would jump and say things like, you don't like the main character because you have unrealistic standards for what a real person is. But the main character was not rational in their thinking.
I think you're getting into a little pitfall of what it is.
Yeah, trying not to diverge, too much into that rant. I could go on about that, but I think the reason I point that out in terms of of the situation with communities is people really do, when they engross themselves in something emotionally, they put their, how do you phrase it, put their own emotional, how do you phrase that?
Excuse me. They invest themselves too much into their entertainment.
When people start investing themselves into that much entertainment to where they are basically a part of the story, it leads into it's like a dopamine high that they get,
Mm-hmm.
and it leads to these toxic.
This is what we call, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I
This
was done.
this is what we call in the community as the Lulu.
Yeah.
But to going back to the pitfall, most visual novels. I'm not sure if you're familiar with visual novels.
Not especially. I know what they are.
Are usually dating sims.
Oh.
Yeah.
So substitution for a social life.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And most of the time, the character is a self-insert.
Mm-hmm.
Think Twilight, but better, a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good association.
But regardless, right? It's this how do you call it? Not antisocial. I wouldn't want to call it antisocial. It's more of a what is it
Well, I
called?
think that's a perfectly reasonable way to put it, because so I was discussing this with a psych major that I was familiar with, and excuse me, that's a weird way of putting it.
Parasocial.
Excuse me.
Par-
Oh yeah, parasocial. But
Yeah.
I was discussing this with a psych major on Buddysworth, and he was saying like, yeah, so how much do you use social media a day? And I go, I really only have like Snapchat. I'm on that, I don't know, every other day or something like that. I don't know, like 30 minutes a day if you really wanted to put a number on it. He says, oh, that's great. You know what the average is for somebody your age? I go, no, what is it? He goes, 6 hours. Excuse me? Yeah, 6 hours.
A day.
A day.
Yeah.
Shit.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and it's
I don't think I use Discord that much.
Exactly.
I'm on it
I look up
24/7.
memes and that's it.
but yeah, no, it's people deriving their own, how do you call it, connections, I guess,
Mhm.
with what they're consuming.
With fiction.
And that's why you get like this discourse of why can't you see reality from fiction? But it also works the other way on like people are blaming certain community. Oh, not again. This is not for all community, and there are some bad things behind it sometimes. But like when like the idea of regular people looking into the gaming or gaming communities and say, oh, this person played Call of Duty. They are violent because they see or interact with guns, and guns are violent.
Yeah, those stereotypes.
And not just stereotypes. Those are just actual connections to things that they have. And this is kind of the opposite of like having so much investiture into your media. This is someone who is unfamiliar with your media.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no familiarity in making poor. Excuse me, not rationalizations, but making poor
Judgment.
judgments. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Man.
And like it's just that like two sides of the same coin kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, the parasocials of the communities are really bad. And where to the point of like you can see it in streamers too, and that's terrible. You get stalkers, you get like
Crazy
incels.
fans, crazy fans,
Yes.
crazy fans.
Taylor Swift fans.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
but then
She is a Kansas City icon, and you will respect her.
and then you get like your angry parent that don't understand that gun in video games does not mean gun in real life.
He's gonna take you back to the past
Oh God, no!
to play some
Not
e
angry
games
video
that suck.
game nerd.
Yeah.
But I do think that even then, like when you mentioned streamers.
Well, no, I brought up that specifically because that was actually supposed to be a contemporary criticism of video game personalities at
Really?
the time. Yeah, like the character that James Rolfe created back in 2004 was meant to be a parody of that sort of thing, and it's been a parody basically ever since for 20 years now. But
Oh my God, it has been 20 years.
yeah, exactly.
We're
That's
old.
yeah. Well, okay, I was 3 when the first episode came out, but you get what I mean, though. It's always been a prevalent aspect of people that take it way, way too seriously, and that's just something that has been observed in really any community,
Medium.
in
Or
any
any
medium.
medium.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, it doesn't have to be video games.
Mhm.
It could be baseball.
They could-
So
I mean,
you
yeah,
do.
you're not wrong. I mean, I
But
come
yeah.
on, Cardinals, please.
But
I mean, when you go on to like streamers and stuff, I think that it's even like a good example that because there's a lot of streamers who have their own communities based around them, and I think even then, you do have people who who hold a lot of emotional attachment to some of these streamers, which leads into some of that stalker mentality that you mentioned before.
Feeling like they're your friends or something like that when they've never met you before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most ridiculous portion of online content creation, I think. I remember when I was in like elementary school, and I got my first phone. Actually, no, middle school. And I was watching all these YouTubers and stuff like that, like contemporary, PBG, JonTron, that sort of thing. I remember thinking like, oh wow, it'd be really cool if like I could hang out with them because we both like video games. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, these guys are actors. Like that's not this isn't their personality. This okay, yeah, no, this wouldn't really work. This is ridiculous.
I would be a hypocrite saying that we shouldn't be like following streamers to like somewhat of an investiture in them, because I do follow like a lot of YouTubers and also like like Japanese personalities and
Hawaii.
no, not like actual like VAs or
Right, I get what you're saying.
but like I think there is a good balance.
Oh yeah, if you're just
But,
using
like-
them for entertainment and you like their content, that's fine.
But like I think there is a line that there is like not to be across where like don't believe that they are your like personal friend, and don't and understand that they have their own life too outside of this.
If you're listening to this and you think I'm your friend, I'm not. Consider yourself an op. Oh god, that was a terrible I'm really sorry about that. I apologize.
That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
Don't worry, I'll be exiled before too long.
That's true. And then I'll take over. But one thing that I've noticed is even that mindset of like that stalker mindset is still like, I agree that there is like a balance, but I think a lot of people just struggle to fully find that balance, because when I was in that visual novel community, I remember very distinctly there were some people who like would either roleplay as the main character, like would roleplay as the main lover character, or had personalities similar to the main lover character. And dude, the abundance amount of creepy people that you would find in your DMs was ridiculous. Like I don't know how
You're getting
a lot of it's got to do with COVID and just the amount of people that were locked inside.
No.
2020.
Well, no, I mean
They've been
it's not.
prevalent, like very much out before COVID.
Well, no, I mean like I understand that. I'm saying is that like a lot of people were conditioned to do that, I think, because they were stuck inside and stuff like that. Like I got involved in some Discord drama back during COVID that I'm not proud of, but
But anyways, I wouldn't fully blame it on COVID. COVID brought the worst out of people.
Yeah, no, I'm not singularly blaming it on COVID.
But,
it's just there was a massive uptick in that.
But yes, it's just this thing of just going back to it. It's just the mental health of the community or of the individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just the community, of the individuals plays a part into it, because while role-playing communities can be fun, it gets worse when it becomes like your as you also said, coping mechanism, so that it becomes like it goes that further than what it is.
Right, and I do know from experience back when I was a lot less mentally stable, I used a lot of those things as coping mechanisms for specific things that I didn't have in my life, and that really made me like a really gross person, where I did some of those nasty like stalker mentality stuff that I should never have done, and I can look back and laugh at myself now, but it's still like a good testament to kind of see how when those things are physically like an emotional dependency, like how bad a state.
And no one fault those people for that, because they're in not great of a mind state. But either way, right? I think a lot of people don't. I think misunderstand how coping works.
When people tell you to go touch grass, it's not a simple matter of please, for the love of God, get off the internet for the day. It's to try to help give perspective and to try to help lend some kind of understanding of how small an issue can be, or how truly strange an attitude or behavior is. And it is an appeal to, please, this isn't who you're supposed to be. and keeping track of your mental health and keeping track of who you are as a person is paramount in all things that you do. And again, we keep making appeals to balances. And of course, there's nothing wrong with a good bit of escapism or having some fun from entertainment. It's just trying to manage that. And I do, and this is a genuine, earnest appeal. I know I've been kind of taking the piss this whole time, and I do apologize if I've stepped on somebody's toes. But really and truly, this is a plea to say that, please, if you can, if nothing else, just try to gain some perspective.
Yeah, and a healthy mindset leads to a healthy life, and that's what we're here for. The GamerRoos. We're helping you guys, everyone, including ourselves, to kind of connect.
The amount of people I see from GamerRoos at the gym is genuinely heartwarming.
To connect, to just enjoy life without the whole baggage.
Try to drop out of reality for a little bit and come back when you're ready.
It's sometimes that's what people need.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe next episode we can do a video, or we can do an episode on, which will probably be your last episode, James.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do an episode maybe on mental health in video games, kind of discussing how...
And how it's basically core to what it is. Because what is games without emotions?
Exactly. It's a very boring story, that's for sure. And I think a good way to kind of wrap this episode up, unless you had something to say.
No, I'm fine.
To kind of summarize the TLDR of this episode, video game communities are not all inherently toxic, but a lot of times mental health and other issues can play a big role into why communities start to suffer. And the last point to kind of wrap this entire thing up is, I think,
if I may add,
yeah, you may.
It's also about how we're not all the same group. Gamers aren't just gamers, and we all have our little spaces in this world. But regardless of where we are in this world, we can still connect, and hopefully make a bigger world for ourselves.
And I think that really the thing that makes communities, I think one thing that separates a bad community from a good community is understanding of other people's opinions. Because I've seen communities like Atelier Iris where people have negative opinions on games, and it's a simple matter of, that's fair, I can see your perspective. And when people understand other people's opinions, the communities are less prone to be toxic. But when people are, like James said earlier in the episode, where they're kind of investing themselves too emotionally in these games, that's when it becomes a lot more difficult to properly.
If you're not establishing that barrier between yourself and the entertainment that you consume, quite frankly, you ruin it for everybody else.
I wouldn't say a barrier, but at least acknowledge that your experience is different than others. Because that's, I think, the biggest thing.
By virtue of it being a human experience, it is inherently subjective, and as such, you should treat it as such.
It's it's not just about all that. It's about openness of mentality, where you can have your opinions and I can have my opinions, and we don't need to fight over it.
I don't think anybody here knows how to wrap this episode up, so I'll just...
You can wrap it up. I don't know what wrapping up an episode means.
It's... Anyways.
Thank you very much for listening to the GamerRoos Podcast. We hope you have a very good week, and we hope you're enjoying the end of your semester. And have a good day. Go Cardinals. Go KC.
And one last announcement before we do fully go. James here will be leaving the GamerRoos
graduation.
After his graduation, I think I think next week is your last episode, but I'm not entirely sure. Do you know?
Probably, yeah.
It's either that or probably the next episode. But James will be leaving here soon, and when that happens, me, Alex, will be taking over the GamerRoos Podcast. So there will be some changes kind of going on. I'll probably...
You'll actually get a regular upload schedule?
Yeah, maybe, if I can also balance my classes out. But I've done editing for a while, so I kind of have a more fast pace. But we'll also probably have more content showing up, so just to kind of be on the lookout for what the new journey might be for the GamerRoos Podcast. So.
And you can count on hearing from me.
Yeah, Min will always be.
Thanks, Min.
Don't worry. I will be at the beck and call of whatever you guys need.
We'll put up the men's signal.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm more than willing to have fun with the GamerRoos anytime.
All right. And thank you very much for listening, and have a good night.